So you've been riding for years. You've got thousands of miles under your belt, maybe even decades. You know your machine. You've carved up twisties, blasted down highways, survived sketchy city traffic, and walked away from more than a few close calls. And yet, experienced riders still crash. I'm Matthew from Autozium, and today we're digging into the uncomfortable truth of why seasoned riders still go down and what you can actually do to avoid it. Let's ride. Comfort isn't always your friend. When you're new to riding, your senses are on high alert. Every rev of the engine feels intense. Every downshift feels critical. You overthink every corner, every car in your mirrors, every movement of your handlebars. And that hyper awareness, while exhausting, is actually a safety net. It keeps your mind engaged. It forces you to respect the risk. But after a few thousand miles, that edge dulls. The same road you once approached with caution becomes familiar. The throttle feels like second nature. You start riding by feel instead of conscious thought. And that's when comfort turns into complacency. You stop scanning every intersection. You assume drivers will behave. You quit checking your blind spots every time you change lanes because you never saw anyone there before. You stop double checking your gear before heading out for a quick ride to the store. That pre ride check, you skip it because the bike was fine yesterday. And here's the scary part, it usually is fine for a while. That's how the trap gets set, because the longer you go without something going wrong, the more your brain starts telling you that nothing will. And when that moment finally comes, a dog runs out, a truck swerves, the road turns slick, you're not ready. You're mentally unprepared for it because you've conditioned yourself to expect normal. Riding on autopilot feels good, but motorcycles demand more than comfort. They demand presence. Every time you throw a leg over the bike, you need to flip that mental switch from coasting to alert. Treat your ride like it's the first time, because no matter how many miles you've done, the road doesn't care. The risk doesn't scale down with experience. It just changes form. You can ride a route 100 times, and on the 101st, something unexpected can wreck your day, unless you're paying attention. Comfort isn't evil, but it needs boundaries. Don't let it lull you into thinking the ride is routine. Because the second you start feeling like nothing can surprise you, that's usually when something does. Confidence can blind you. Confidence on a motorcycle is an incredible thing until it turns into a liability. When you've got years behind the bars, your bike feels like an extension of your body. You don't think about countersteering anymore. You do it. Throttle modulation, cornering lines, clutch finesse, it's all second nature. And that kind of mastery, it's powerful. It gives you control. It opens up new roads, new speeds, new techniques. But there's a line. Confidence is earned. Overconfidence sneaks in when you stop realizing that just because you can doesn't mean you should. You roll into a familiar corner with cold tires, assuming they'll grip like they always do. You tailgate in traffic thinking, I'll just swerve if they brake hard. You roll through a stop sign because this street's always empty. You trust yourself, but forget that the world isn't always predictable. One tiny miscalculation is all it takes. A little gravel in the apex, a car you didn't hear, a deer jumping out of the shadows. Experienced riders sometimes crash not because they're doing anything wildly reckless, but because they stop calculating the possibility of danger. Their confidence tells them, I've handled worse. And most of the time, that's true, until it's not. It's important to believe in your skill. You've worked for it. But don't let that belief evolve into a blind spot. Remember, the road doesn't care how good you are. It'll humble you without warning. And if your confidence has convinced you that you don't need to be scanning, checking, adjusting, then that's not confidence anymore. That's ego. Stay confident, but always leave room for reality. Expect the unexpected. Not with fear, but with preparation. You're not invincible, and your experience doesn't shield you from surprises. It just gives you more tools to handle them, if you're awake enough to see them coming. Habits become lazy. One of the biggest myths in motorcycling is that once you've formed habits, you're safe. But here's the truth. Habits aren't permanent. They fade. They change. And if you're not constantly checking yourself, those once disciplined routines can turn into lazy shortcuts. When you were a beginner, you probably covered your brakes religiously, two fingers hovering, ready for anything. You scanned intersections like your life depended on it, because it did. You geared up even for short rides and double checked your tire pressure before every trip. Fast forward a few thousand miles, and now what? You cruise with your throttle hand full gripped, brake hand asleep. You let your gaze wander. You skip the gear because it's just a 5 minute ride. That pre ride ritual, it slowly turns into, it'll be fine. That's how crashes creep in. Not in a dramatic blaze of stupidity, but through a slow erosion of attention. Your muscle memory stays sharp. Your body still knows how to ride, but your brain, it's no longer engaged. And that disconnect is where experienced riders fall. Lazy habits don't just show up in how you ride, they show up in how you think. You stop asking questions. Do I have enough room to swerve? Am I assuming too much from that car? Is my line clean in this corner? Those used to be automatic thoughts. Now, maybe not. And don't think this only happens on long rides or in heavy traffic. It's especially dangerous on your home roads, the ones you ride every day, because you stop seeing them. That stop sign isn't a threat, it's just part of the background. That blind corner, you roll through it without checking because no one's ever there. That's how lazy habits become dangerous habits. The fix? Audit yourself. Regularly, ask yourself, am I still doing the little things right? Watch your own ride footage. Ride with a friend and compare notes. Revisit those drills you haven't touched in years. Be honest about what you've let slide. Motorcycling rewards focus and punishes neglect. The good news? Those solid habits you built early on, they're still in you. You just have to bring them back to the surface. Don't let experience dull your edge. Let it sharpen your self awareness. Skill can't replace attention. You can be the most technically skilled rider in your group. You can nail your lines, brake like a champ, and ride circles around others in the twisties. But none of that matters if your mind isn't in the game. Motorcycles are brutally honest. They won't save you just because you know what to do. They'll only respond if you're actively doing it, and doing it at the right time. That's where attention comes in. Riding well is a performance, and like any performance, timing is everything. If you're not actively aware of your surroundings, your skill is useless. You can't swerve around a hazard you didn't notice. You can't brake for a tailgater you didn't see coming. You can't adjust for a crosswind you didn't feel because your mind was somewhere else. The most tragic crashes aren't the ones where someone lacked the skill. They're the ones where a skilled rider simply wasn't present. We like to think we're multitaskers, but on a bike, even a moment of distraction can cost you. Thinking about work, stressed about life, letting your brain drift to dinner plans, that's the space where mistakes breed. The longer you ride, the more tempting it is to zone out. The bike feels natural. The throttle, the gears, they do what you expect. And that makes it easy to let your focus wander. But here's the key. Focus is a muscle. And like any muscle, if you don't train it, it weakens. The riders who stay safe long term are the ones who train their attention as deliberately as they train their countersteering. They make it a habit to check their mirrors, scan intersections, read body language in traffic. They've built that vigilance into their ride, not out of paranoia, but out of respect for the risk. So, yes, be skilled, know your machine, master your techniques, but never, ever assume that's enough on its own. Because it's not just about what you can do, it's about when you do it. And the only way to get the timing right is to be fully locked in every single ride. Here's how to stay safe, even with years behind the bars. So, how do you actually avoid the traps that experience sets for you? You don't need to relearn everything from scratch, but you do need to audit yourself, reset your standards, and approach riding with deliberate attention. These 5 habits are your safety net, each one designed to keep your skills sharp and your mind engaged. 1. Reevaluate your habits. Take a hard, honest look at the routines you've built over the years. Are you still checking your tire pressure every week? Still doing a full pre-ride walk around? Do you cover your brakes in city traffic like you used to? We're creatures of pattern. What starts as "I'll skip it just this once" quickly becomes your new normal. But motorcycles punish complacency. Revisit the safety drills you mastered early on and ask yourself, have you drifted away from them? Do you still practice them actively? Start small. Bring back 2 or 3 key habits this week. Check your gear, cover your controls, scan intersections. Then layer in more as they become second nature again. Riding is fluid. Your standards should evolve, but never slip. 2. Do regular skill refreshers. Skill degrades if you don't use it. That tight U-turn you could do in your sleep 2 years ago? It's rusty now. That panic stop you haven't practiced since your license test? Not as smooth anymore. Find a parking lot. Practice slow speed figure eights, emergency braking, clutch control, and balance. Film yourself. Set goals. Track improvement. These sessions don't just sharpen technique, they boost confidence when things get sketchy on the road. Skill isn't static, it's a tool that requires maintenance. And like a chain that never gets lubed, neglected skills eventually fail when you need them most. 3. Stay gear disciplined. Every ride. Every time. No exceptions. You know this already. But somewhere along the way, you might have started cutting corners. No jacket on hot days. Casual shoes for a quick trip. No gloves because you're just riding to the corner store. But gear is your last line of defense when everything else goes wrong. And the thing about crashes? You don't get to schedule them. They happen on the quick rides, the chill rides, the ones where you weren't planning to push. Put your helmet on every time. Zip the jacket up. Throw on real gloves and boots. If you wouldn't want to crash in it, don't ride in it. Gear up out of respect for the risk, and let that mindset anchor the rest of your discipline too. 4. Use mental checkpoints. Before you hit that starter button, take a pause. Ask yourself, am I clear-headed? Am I feeling rushed or distracted? Is my attention 100% on this ride? These questions take 5 seconds, but they can change your entire ride. Motorcycling isn't passive. You're not sitting in traffic with Netflix on your dash. You're managing a machine that can end your life in the blink of an eye. Treat that ignition switch like a trigger for full mental engagement. The best riders treat focus as gear they wear, and they don't leave home without it. 5. Know when you're not focused. Here's something experienced riders rarely admit. Sometimes you just shouldn't ride. You're exhausted. You're emotionally drained. You're distracted. And yet, you gear up anyway, telling yourself, I've ridden in worse. But that's a gamble, and while you can ride tired or angry, you shouldn't. Because motorcycles don't make room for brain fog. They demand presence. So give yourself permission to sit one out. Or, if you must ride, scale it back. Stick to slower roads. Skip the aggressive stuff. Ride like you're operating at 70% because you are, and compensate accordingly. The mark of a seasoned rider isn't how hard they push when conditions are good, it's how wisely they ride when conditions are not. You've got experience. Use it wisely. Experience is your greatest asset, but only if you treat it like a living tool, not a badge of honor. You've learned the hard lessons. You've paid your dues. But none of that matters if you let those lessons fade. The truth is, experienced riders don't crash because they lack ability. They crash because they let go of the things that made them skilled in the first place. Awareness, discipline, humility. Every ride is an opportunity to reinforce those traits or to let them slip. You've seen what can happen. You've seen the aftermath of a lapse in judgment, a missed scan, a lazy move. That awareness is your edge, but only if you wield it. So ride like it's your first day, with all the skill and knowledge you've earned since. Bring that day one hunger back, that sense of awareness, the fire to do it right, not just do it well. Because being an experienced rider doesn't mean you can't crash. It just means you have fewer excuses if you do. I'm Matthew from Autozium. Ride humble, ride aware, and I'll see you out there.